Welcome to Event Experience by Bizzabo, the podcast where we bring the best and brightest event experience leaders together to share stories, tips, and lessons learned from creating some of the world's biggest events. I'm Rachel Moore, your podcast host. Word of mouth is and always has been a powerful marketing tactic. One could say it's like a snowball gathering size and speed. We thought the best thing to do would be to welcome Snöballer-in-Chief at Snöball Event Marketing, Rachel Stephan, to the pod to share her expertise about how events can be amplified through referral marketing. Rachel shares the metrics that matter, tactics that turn the tide, and channels that can change the course of your event experience. Today's guest takes us into the specific focus of event marketing. And with over 20 years of experience behind her, we're in for a discussion full of her expertise in that area. With skills in art and creative direction, she has built an empire helping event marketers turn their word of mouth into a veritable snowstorm. Hint, hint. She is the Snöballer-in-Chief at Snöball Event Marketing. I'm inviting and welcoming none other than Rachel Stephan to the Bizzabo podcast event experience. Welcome to the pod.
Well, thank you, Rachel. This is exciting. I'm happy to be here. And then, my God, after this intro, I feel my head is like this big.
Good. That is what we're aiming for, because it's as big as the snowball that your company creates. Oh my gosh. Now I'm just going to be seeing you as like a snowman walking around and just like, everybody.
Oh, I should be wearing like a toque and a scarf or something. You know?
And it's autumn. It's not snowing yet, but you make it snow all year.
We make it snow all year. It was funny. As I was going to say, we should have recorded this. Well, we should have done this in the winter. And I could be outside in the snow somewhere.
Oh my gosh. You'd be like a weather person. That would be hilarious, where you're like, it's snowing and it should snow for you. And
here's the forecast. You're going to get a lot of people coming to your event.
That's right.
If you do this.
I love it. Well, let's segue into some get to know you questions, Rachel. For those days when you have to be on the ground at an event all day, what are your go-to shoes to wear?
Running shoes, always. Adidas. Yes.
Ooh, nice.
For me, it's more comfort over looks. So I always opt for comfort, especially when long days and you're walking, and usually convention centers, especially Vegas, a lot of walking.
Yes.
So you better be in comfortable shoes.
So many steps, so many miles. That is so true.
Oh yeah. I make up for my whole year of steps.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I know later I'll be like, wow. I mean, you've got people who go to Disney World, and then you've got people who do events, and like about the same amount of steps you do every day.
No.
That's right. Is there anything that you're listening to, watching, or reading these days that you can't put down? And it doesn't have to be related to work.
Books, I have a hard time starting and finishing them, and I haven't in a while, but there's one that I picked up last week. And it's sort of a personal in a way. I don't know if it's a long story, but I'll make it short. I'll try. It's a friend of ours, sister, who wrote this book, her only book, and she passed away a couple of months ago. And I know the family. And they are Chilean immigrants that came to Canada and started from zero. They came as refugees. And hearing the story it's all about portraying what immigrants coming and integrating with the country, and how they started from zero with nothing to what they became. And one, I loved it because I know them. Two is like I can relate to certain things because I am an immigrant. I did come to Canada from Lebanon, and I didn't say I come with nothing, but at least as a journey myself as a person. And it's funny, I can send you the picture after that. I did find in Lebanon when I was there, the picture of my first apartment that I ever got in Montreal, where I first started. It was a one room where I had a bed on the floor. I had one coffee mug, one spoon, one fork, one knife. And I was super happy and proud because I was paying for it. It was mine. It was where I started. And I don't know if you can see here, I'm in a beautiful home, backyard, pool, snowball, the whole thing. And thank God, I'm grateful for every day. But it's just like the journey of what you go through. And then the sky is the limit in a way, but you can make your own fortune in a way, and accomplish something. So it meant something to me, that one. So I finished it yesterday.
Oh, neat.
So it was really, really exciting. The other one is also an app. I finally decided to download it. It's called Headway. And it's because I can't finish books. I can't concentrate enough to stay on a long book. And I started with the Audible books. This one is even giving you the summary of the book. So instead of scrolling in their app, their ad, they got me. It's like, instead of the scrolling, give yourself like 10, 15 minutes a day where you pick a book of interest and then, listen to it. And it gives you like a nutshell that breaks down all the chapters, the main points of the book, 15 minutes a day. It's like, okay, I can do this.
That's
So
cool.
that one I've been enjoying it, actually.
What's that, real quick, what's the title of the book that you read about the immigration?
Yes, it's a French book. I can send you they translated it quite a bit and became a hit, actually. And now, I mean, she was a professor in university. Now they have a prize or like a bursary in her name for anybody coming as an immigrant to support their education and all that. And she did not know French when she first came here, not a word of French. And she became a sociologist, teaching French and sociology, and wrote her book and became a hit across the country.
Between that story and your story, those are so compelling. Thank you for sharing that. That amazing to share. And yeah, we want to make sure our audience has links to that in the show notes. Wow. Well, I'll move on to a couple last questions. Is there a particular social post or a piece of media or even a hot take about events that you found interesting lately?
Well, last week I saw a post by a friend, Catherine Frexon from Money 2020. And, anything that they post, really, their campaign are so top notch in terms of marketing and messaging and how they portray it and everything. And there was this specific post, and I'll share it with you also to include it in the show notes. It was about showing who's going to be there, but they did it in a way as that, like almost like a CVS receipt. So it's like the list of people are longer than your CVS receipt. And it doesn't show the name of the people, shows the companies, and then you have you in one of the thing, and it continues. And at the end, the total of how many people are coming, which is kind of mimics a little bit the total of your bill and the barcode. And my suggestion was on my comment on that post, like, okay, imagine if that barcode at the bottom was something that you can scan, or the user, while they're you can scan it and go straight to the registration.
Yeah.
From the ads. It's like, that's interesting. But I mean, that's something I'm always looking out for things that, sometimes small things that you could do that will stand out, not your typical marketing kind of campaigns. The other ones for the events, I'm curious. I'll let you know after, I guess, the whole inbound experience, how that's going to play out, because that's an interesting one to see how they deliver that and the whole experience, how it's all about. But I do love something about what they're doing is that there's a whole community around the inbound of, how to prepare it, and like a forum. People are starting to ask and talk to each other, and it's really active, because events are always trying to create communities, and it's not always evident that it picks up. This one, for some reason, feels like a lot of engagement there. So, watching out for it to see what's different.
Well, I'll be watching everyone's social. Maybe I'll get there next year as I make my decisions for where to register stuff, especially hearing the peer-to-peer marketing of people, my peers in my circles, that tell me how it was. But that's how that all works, right? Well, we're already kind of carrying on into it. I'll toss this over to you. Can you tell us a bit more about your role as the Snöballer-in-Chief at Snöball Event Marketing? And also, I'd love to know how you landed on the name Snöball.
Oh, that's a funny one. And it's always very when you least expect it, really. I've been in marketing for very many years, and I started with an event marketing agency in 2001, marketing events, conferences, and all the bits and everything related to marketing. And it was a service-based company, and I wanted eventually, the event industry has a lot of, ups and downs during the year. You get busy in the spring, and the summer is slower, and then higher in the fall. I wanted something to kind of level up and kind of continue from there. So I wanted to create a product or technology of some sort that will also help do that. Mm-hmm. And then the idea was like, okay, when we're doing these marketings for these events, we notice a trend of some sort where people and the host companies, the host organizers, and people who are involved in the event, the planning, we're also involved in helping spreading the word and tapping into their networks and the people that they know. They have clout, they have influence. So you see a difference there. It's like, okay, how can we scale this? How can we track this? And what can we do with it? So that's the idea I started there. The name itself because I kept talking about this idea at the agency. We never had a name for it. It's like, oh, the project, the project, the project. And at the time, my developer at the time, David, we were talking about it one summer, and it's like, le projet, like the project is French. And it's like, well, appelons-le boule de neige. Like, let's call it Snowball. And then he continued talking, and I said, stop. Right there. This is it. This is the name. This is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to create a snowball effect with word of mouth. Yeah. And then it's stuck there, and it's like, it's been an amazing. I have so much fun with it. I mean, it explains itself. I've been talking about it, and then the person in front is like, and it snowballs from there. It's like, yes, you got it. That's exactly it. So it's fun.
It's so fun. And it really does. Like, I was thinking as I was drafting up, I'm like, how do I introduce you? And I know we worked it in, which is great. Cause I was like, you're literally making it snow all year round. And, and the fact that it accumulates. And as somebody, you live in Canada and I live in Denver. We know when snow accumulates, it takes everything over. And so that's very much how event marketing is and how Snöball event marketing works. So I'm excited that we're talking about this today too, because oh my gosh, it's all in the zeitgeist about events industry is trying to make sure people not only know about your event, but want to go, right? And want to register. So we are going to talk about that today, since this is what you do. This is your bread and butter, as it were. But we all want to make sure people not only know about our events, but make them feel like they cannot miss out from attending it. So can you define, because I think this all correlates to peer-to-peer marketing. Can you define peer-to-peer marketing for our audience and why it's so crucial, especially today in that environment we just described? Why is peer-to-peer marketing really important for event marketers to be aware of and utilize?
Yeah, totally. So peer-to-peer marketing or word of mouth or whatever you want to call it, it's really at the core base of it is people. How can you get people to be your promoters? So, obviously every event, they're doing their own marketing, they're doing the promotion, it's coming from the brand voice. The idea of peer-to-peer is having other people say that your event is good or showcase that the fact that they are going or presenting or sponsoring and all that. So that's in a way you're putting the megaphone in the hands of your people for them to also share their experience of your event, because people trust people trust their friends and colleagues. There's that important social proof factor too, because when we market events, we look at also what are some of the main things people look at when they're going for the event. Obviously, everybody's like, oh, they're going for the education, they're going for the networking, but they also, what networking is about the people, like who else is going to be there. If you're not showcasing that, if you're not enabling people to talk about your event, then they won't know who's going. Because you can have the greatest speaker roster, the greatest program. At the end of the day, it's what happens in the hallways. Yeah. It's the people that you're going to meet there that are important for you. And it's important to also, because peer-to-peer marketing, it allows you to expand your reach, your amplification beyond your core base of audience. Yeah. We market an event. We always, a client give us that list of people. This is where we're targeting, we're emailing, we're all going to the same people. This is one way. It's like, why stop there? It's not a dead end. For me, it's like, yes, they got the people to register, but there's more like them. And how can we get to the like them like that? It's through the people themselves. So that's why it's very important.
And, marketer to marketer, because you and I both work in marketing. I think it can be really easy to automatically say, well, that's like social media. Of course it is. But this spans into multiple channels though, does it not? Because it's like, yes, you can obviously share on social, and any brand out there, you of course want people to share. That money interaction or engagement you have on a post that you put out there is when the people share it. Because now it's going out on their own feed to their own audience that you may not have following your page. But there's also email lists and newsletters, even like messaging and stuff like that, right? I mean, I assume this goes beyond just strictly social sharing, correct?
Are you like reading my mind now? It's crazy.
If I can, I will count myself lucky, because you have so much to share here. This is great.
Yes. So exactly that. There's something that we say is like, oh, it's the social sharing. It's just sharing, period. Because, we recently published a report on, I think the first ever in our industry, the peer-to-peer marketing report, based on data analyzing a lot of the events that we worked on in 2023. And it was surprising to see exactly that. So we kind of looked at, what are the channels that people are sharing it to? Because in essence, we give them options, because not everybody's going to be sharing on LinkedIn. We give them 13 social channel options, because you can have Slack, you can have Teams, you can have WhatsApp, you can have Messenger, you can have SMS, LinkedIn, WeChat, all those are part of what they have. Depending on the industry, depending on your geographical location, that changes totally. So this data changes completely from one event to another one. And when we looked at the data, they compiled that on average, the direct messaging one, and email was one of them. The direct messaging one was more than LinkedIn. 36% of the sharing was happening on direct messaging. After that is LinkedIn at 28%. And then on email is 17. And then the other rest of the social channel is about 15.
Wow.
So that tells you a little bit, all that. There was one instance that was interesting too, because I always recommend, because some clients would want to do, like, for example, let's limit which ones we put. It's like, no, let's give them the option, because you will be surprised sometimes by what you can find. And funny enough, is one client in particular, they found, I think, one or two channels that they weren't considering in their marketing. So they shifted their whole marketing strategy to include that new channel that they found that people are communicating and using mostly between each other. It's like, that's intel that it's amazing to have. So it goes beyond, like, okay, let's give them something to share, but let's see also what are we, seeing in terms of behaviors and trends in how our community, our audience are communicating with each other, engaging, what's triggering them to do that, all that stuff.
See, you were just reading my mind, because I was going to ask you about that. Like, I would assume that kind of insight, we all can make assumptions and even do research and have data-driven, pivots that we do, where it's like, well, we know or guess very accurately that this is where our target audience is, consuming content and sharing content stuff. But then you actually see it in play, and you see, like, particularly when you're talking about kind of a microcosm of an event and how and where they're sharing that. Oh my gosh, well, they're sharing it in, like, Slack groups, and they're sharing it, and they have an email list that they're doing, and who knew that? And or Discord or things like that. And such valuable information for, like you said, then to take that data and be like, well, we know more now about people that are, not only our target audience, but then who they're following and stuff, and where those trends are going. That seems like super valuable data. And I wanted to make sure we talked about that too, and just highlighted the fact this is not just about social media. And this will get into my next question too, because there might be a lot of assumptions that event marketers, or just generally marketers, have about peer-to-peer sharing and peer-to-peer reputation and word of mouth. Do you think that today's event profs and or their events are incorporating enough peer-to-peer in their marketing? Or do you feel like they're kind of just scratching the surface? I would kind of love to hear, like, where would you rate them as far as, like, how well they're using peer-to-peer marketing?
I think there's a lot of acknowledgement of it right now, way more than it before. So you see it more, you hear it more happening. Now, the level of utilizing it and implementing it kind of varies from, beginner, let's do the basic, to let's take it all the way a step further, where it becomes more like an influencer marketing almost, because you start maybe with the peer-to-peer referrals, you identify your top promoters, and from there you can move on to do some targeted one-on-one campaigns with your most influential promoters, for example. So that is, it varies from the level of comfort and knowledge of what they could do, and also the time, because sometimes they might set up something, but they're not putting all the efforts in it because they haven't seen yet maybe the value of what it could bring. So if you don't really nurture it, it's like almost like putting a Google ad, for example, and just put the ad and forget it, set it and forget it. If it's not performing, it's not the issue of Google. It's also like you have to look at what copy you did, what visual you did, the targeting that you did. You have to switch up a few things. You have to play around with it. And in the peer-to-peer marketing, you have to look at the same thing. And also for that, you have to implement at some point to see if it needs them boosting. There are some incentives. You have to gamify it. You have to reward your promoters in a way, because in every group is motivated by something completely different. Your speakers might be motivated by something else than your sponsors and your partners. Then the attendees, some of them are motivated by monetary stuff, some other ones by experiences, other ones by privileges. I mean, look at the election. We're not going to get into the election part of it, but I was surprised to see and happy to see that they have dedicated a whole section, regardless of who they are. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking from a marketing point of view. The creators, that they put like a front row seat for the creators. For them, these are the peer people. So they are going to share and create their content from there. So when you talk about peer-to-peer, we're talking pre-event, trying to get them there. But what if one of the incentives or some of the things you do, you bring it on-site as well, and you dedicate an exclusive area or something for these people that are common people. You're not hiring them. They're not paying them. You're just giving them privileged access, VIP access to go sit there and then continue on-site to continue talking about your event. And it goes from there. So all this, when you look at it holistically and all that, what could be done with peer-to-peer marketing is not just about asking them to just share on posts on social media or anywhere they share, hey, I'm going to this event. There's way more to that.
You brought up gamification just now too. I think that's something we just had we recently had a webinar, I think even a podcast episode about gamification. That sometimes feels like that's a bit of a nebulous topic too for event marketers to be like, okay, yeah, we keep hearing we have to gamify our event. How do we do that? But you can do that right with, like you said, with peer-to-peer sharing and that marketing where it's like, hey, you could put out it's so important that you mentioned that too. Certainly you can just like roll out like an organic, like, hey, everybody share that you're speaking at this event or that you're attending this event. Just go share that's what you're doing. But if you're like, okay, we want to see a little bit more activity, maybe we need to whoever has the top shares or metric or whatever, which we'll get into metrics in a moment, but you can set that bar to say, maybe we give something away. Maybe once you get to the event, you get a special, experience that nobody else will get. But just those things that are in your power to pull those levers, right? And just like amplify it a little bit more over here and get that. But you really are. I mean, there's so much potential. Like you said, it's not just about saying, hey, I just want you to share this and that's it. But you can incorporate other aspects of that event and the event marketing, like gamification, into that peer-to-peer marketing approach, which I think is super, super valuable.
What I've seen also done is that it doesn't have to be like one prize for the whole campaign. You could do it in multiple intervals that they could do it. And it could be for the top refer. It could be even just for sharing. Some clients offer them, share and you'll get this, or you'll enter into a draw for something. So it's really about being creative and also discussing and seeing like, what can we do? And then curating different experiences or different prizes that will appeal to that particular audience.
We'll be right back with more event experience after the break. Let's face it, venting won't fix outdated, overpriced event management software that lacks the support and features you need. But Bizzabo's event experience operating system will. Say goodbye to your frustrating legacy event software and hello to building more events that matter. Visit Bizzabo.com. That's Bizzabo.com to learn more about the Event Experience OS, Click Smart Badge, and more. We're back with Rachel Stephan to learn what metrics to watch in peer-to-peer marketing.
It's really key to understand what drives each one of them. And then you monitor the results after that. It's like, okay, was there a spike in the engagement, in the referrals? Then it's working. So let's continue with that, or let's adjust or add something else, for example, as we go closer to the event.
Well, let's talk about those metrics. So you're obviously looking at peer-to-peer marketing. We all can default to thinking that social, but like you said, it's also like where it's getting shared, how often it's getting shared. I'll stop here and let you talk. What are the metrics when it comes to peer-to-peer marketing that you as Snowball, Snowball Event Marketing, but also the event profs could be mindful of? Like, what are you looking at to say, hey, this is a successful peer-to-peer marketing approach?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we look at. Essentially, there's the amplification option of it, version of it that you want to see, or you want to get your message multiplied and reach as much as audience as possible of the right audience. Because if I'm sharing it, I'm in events, I share it to my LinkedIn, for example, my whole connection is all about events. So it's really targeted. So you already have a pre-targeted audience that you have through peer-to-peer. The amplification is really about, the visibility that you got from the reach of that post. You get to also, like, we encourage for them to mobilize pretty much everybody. So not just their speakers, not just their sponsors, their attendees, because most of the volume of people going are the attendees. So then you have to do that. So from there, we would need to know, we outreach to them to ask them to promote it. So we have to track the engagement on those email campaigns that we're sending them to do that. So what is the open rate, the click rate, they open it, did they share it? What's percentage did they actually engage in that? So on average, like I said, in that report, in the open rate, you will see about 58% open rate. That's extremely high for email marketing because they already bought from you. They're involved. They are engaged in your event. So that's a great one. And the other one, if they actually click to check out to share, is 28% on the click rate. That's also very high. Then we need to see, okay, from those referrals, like, you shared it to your LinkedIn, I clicked on your post. That click, like, how many people did we manage to, like, the traffic that we generate from those referral links? That we also track to tell you how many people we sent you to your event to check it. Then out of the ones that they went to send is to check your site, how many actually registered? These are the conversions from the referrals. So those, the way we count them, somebody has to follow directly the link that they got from the referring person all the way to the checkout to get that thank you page. That's when we count them. We're not going to count ones that, we influenced to register. We don't count the referral traffic as ones that we sent you as referrals. It's actually they bought the ticket. That's when we count it. In some cases, though, what happens is that if the ticket price is very high, they're not going to buy it immediately. Same as you have a Google ad. They click on it. Yes, you got the click rate there, but maybe they came in maybe a week later because they have to go get approval, talk to their boss, plan their stuff, and go register. When they go to register, they didn't go back, click on that ad or on that referral link. They went straight to the event site because now they know about it. So that doesn't get counted on our side anyways for that part. The other one is like what we track is like it allows you to identify your top promoters. Who are the ones that are referring the most? It tells you if they shared it, where they shared it. They might have shared it to multiple channels, how many people they referred, and who they referred. So we can see exactly, well, Rachel came because of Rachel. It's because of her post on LinkedIn. We know that. So we know that the client knows that. It's like they are able to identify those. From there, it allows you to do the gamification and contest and incentivizing because at least you can attribute who's getting what done. And the other one that I was talking about earlier is the metrics around which social or which channel are they distributing your content or sharing it with their colleagues. That I find it fascinating to see. So because that tells you a lot about the engagement on which channel you could or should, or maybe you are already working with.
I feel like that's awesome because now we have a good shape, like what metrics are you tracking and how they matter. But as with all things marketing, it's always so interesting how there are blurred lines between a particular type of marketing and how it contributes to and is impacted by other marketing types. So we already talked about gamification, but now we've incorporated influencer marketing. So now you can actually identify for your event who are the influencers.
You don't know who they are. Sometimes you think of some ones and then you look at it because for us, when we look at the snowball effect, it shows you, right, the big cluster of one person with, a lot of different referrals. It's like, who is this person? And the client's like, we don't know. Like, wow, reach out to them. The other interesting part of it, when it gets also year to year, what I found it fascinating is that when we're working with clients multiple years, so let's say they have a sponsor. There was a case of a client. One sponsor got to have and refer 120 people that registered because of them. And we knew there was an email that they sent to the client base or potential one. So 120 people. So we're looking at the analytics, their dashboard for the next year. I was expecting that same exhibitor to be there. He wasn't. It's like, wait a second, there's a disconnect there. So that intel of this campaign should have been also shared with the sales team who are working with the sponsors and exhibitors. Like, this exhibitor is very engaged. They got us a lot of people. Let's look at what we can offer them, do something with them, reward them, treat them a little bit nicely or whatever it is to make sure that they come next year because they're obviously great advocates. So it goes way beyond what you just see there. It kind of trickles down to sales and trade show and your speakers and like all that stuff. It tells you a lot of things there.
Absolutely. Well, it feels like too, like we were just talking about marketing impacts other marketing, but then this data that you're getting from this effort impacts not just the events team or the marketing team, but also sales, ops, and everything where you can help make those decisions next year to say, well, maybe we want to increase our registration rate or our registration goal, but you better darn well make sure you got that same influencer, that one entity, whether it's a vendor or a speaker or just an attendee, where you're like, let's make sure they come back because they really helped move the needle for us on those numbers. And as we all know, events are just such an important part of the pipeline and marketing, sales funnel, qualifying leads, and then ultimately revenue for that business. So all of this is super important data to be having. And it must be fascinating to be able to see that in real time too, to be like, ooh, from a people perspective too, you can be like, ooh, that person's really moving the needle for us. And I like that you mentioned sometimes it's the person you least expect. That happens all the time, right?
Exactly. And one other thing too is like, it's not one person usually, like from the company. You mentioned like about sales and everything, but from the same company, I've seen also some stats from the same company. They have, let's say, 4 or 5 staff members who are going to that show because they're the ones in the exhibit, but each one of them acted as a promoter. So they're getting their clients and their leads and people to come like, hey, meet us, we're going to be there. And when we look at their performance, each one of them got a really good number of people that they referred to the event. So you add it all up, they were higher than that one exhibitor that got 120, but it was multiple ones. So that brings me also to another point. It's like, you have your staff, you have your employee advocacy is also really important, because in most cases, especially the ones in touch with the end user or that person that you want them to come to the event, so they also play a role. They have they have a brand themselves within your brand, but it's a person that they can also play a role in advocating and amplifying the message and let it come from different angles, different voices, and then you'll see the results of it. Because if you compare a little bit, conversion rates between what you do in different marketing channels, the average that we collected from our report is 31.7% click to conversion, like somebody who actually registered. That is also very high and cost efficient. We can break it down in so many things, where it tells you exactly how much a client spent on their Google ads versus what they spent with us. And the cost for acquisition for them for each of those was just minimal compared to what they spent on Google ads. And that's you're getting traffic and pre-qualified people, like I said, because they're referring people who they know might be interested or similar to them.
Yeah, super important. Thank you for bringing that up too. It's not just about the external people that you want to join the event. You can always put your registration page up. You can always, kick off the peer-to-peer marketing. So, as people find the event, learn about it through your outbound marketing, that they're going to be like, oh, great, let me go sign up. Start internally, though. I love that you point that out. And I firmly believe this too. It's so often not tapped enough as a resource to say, let's turn our employees into our referrers. They know the most about the company, and especially if they are going to be either at it or working it. But also, guess what? They probably kind of want to help drive attendance too, because they know that leads to revenue for the company, which means their jobs are secure and then the company's profitable. They have a little incentive to help incentivize people to attend the event too. So I thank you for bringing that up, because I think sometimes people forget.
You never think about it, but then when you think about it, it's like, okay, that's common sense. Absolutely. Yes, let's do that. It's not a big lift. It's not a big effort. It's just utilizing what you already have. That's what I love about this strategy to begin with.
Well, let me ask you this. We're getting a little bit close to the end of time with our standard questions, but do you have any predictions for like what the future holds for referral or peer-to-peer marketing? Like anything that you think is kind of on the frontier? Predictions, expectations?
I wish I had a crystal ball.
Don't we all?
I have a snowball.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to make sure you have this clip later so that you can use that in your marketing, because that was amazing.
I do. Yeah. I don't know. You mean prediction? I don't know. You can't go with anything right now without mentioning AI. with a hint or a base of AHI, I like to call it. It's not artificial intelligence, human intelligence. So mixing both, I think, to facilitate or, leverage AI in terms of personalizing more, a little bit the peer-to-peer campaigns, and in terms of content or recommendations or identifying maybe the people that they would want to refer to or invite based on interest that they've known from the past. AI has to play a role definitely in it, and we're already working on something is going to be soon be released on. You'll hear about it, but yes, AI is one of the areas, and I think also expanding a little bit more on the whole gamification and contesting element of it. That elaborate a little bit more, and then the last one would be no, it's not new. It's not a trend. The whole influencer, but for our industry, peer to peer is the starting point and is also how far you go with it. So there's some education, some learning that needs to be done or to prove that this strategy, this marketing channel, which is the people, is way effective way to promote and multiply yourself. Because we were talking about it earlier. It's like, how can you multiply yourself because you're one person? Same thing for marketing event. Well, this is one way to do it. You multiply it by having everybody with you to also promote with you. But there's different levels to do it, and then getting more comfortable and more knowledge into implementing it and leveraging it to get the word out. At the end of the day, your event is your biggest influencer because it could be false advertising if you're getting all these people coming to your event and they're disappointed or you're not delivering on what you're promising or what, if I referred you go to this restaurant, it's amazing. And you go to the restaurant, it was not a great experience, not the great food. Your reputation or my name is like be tainted. It's like, man, I referred her to that restaurant and it wasn't great. So that trust is going to be broken all around. So I think it comes back down to the event, what you deliver there, the experience you do there, make it memorable, make it something that they want to refer their friends to and they want to come back to. It boils down to that.
I want to ask a quick follow-up on that before we get to the advice question. We are dealing with, and we've seen it a lot lately being talked about too with events, last minute decisions. People are deciding so late in the registration ramp that they're going to attend. And I can speak to this anecdotally. I decided to attend a conference in DC. I registered 1 week before it, less than a week before it, which was so great for my budget. And I mean, that's our sarcastic tone there. But that's a reality. People are, whether it's virtual or in person, they are registering later and later. Is there any advice you have there, whether it's from peer-to-peer marketing or other? What's your take on that? Like how peer-to-peer marketing could maybe help with that?
Yes, it might help. But let me ask you the question. What made you decide last minute?
It basically came down to budget, but I had to decide between that and another conference. I'm like, what am I going to get the most out of this one? And I decided I was going to get the most out of that one, and I needed to go to it.
Why that one? Was it the content, or what made you want to go to that one?
It was the content. So just to be transparent, it was a podcast conference. So I wanted to learn more about podcasting and get better at my craft.
The podcast movement.
It was podcast movement. I was going to go to a different conference that was a bit more of a broader overall marketing conference. There's a few of those, so you can try to guess which one it is, but it's fine. But I'd ultimately decided, I'm like, for right now, my need was to really zero in on podcasting. And so I went to, that's what finally ultimately decided me. Yeah.
Okay. So for your case is the content specifically, but it's also like identifying the conference that met your needs. So maybe on the marketing side of the event needs to do a better job in explaining exactly what you get out of each one of them and how are you different from your competition. Maybe you'd have to kind of explain that. From a peer-to-peer one, I mean, I decided also last minute to go to inbound. But for me, the decision that got me to inbound, one, it was on my bucket list that I'd always wanted to go to it. The second one was mostly seeing all the ones or the people that I wanted to meet with or I know are going. So if I didn't know that, well, I waited to my last minute until it closed, and then I managed to get a ticket finally. So it's that. So if I say peer-to-peer influences people to go, because I like, we go back to what I mentioned earlier, is like, one of the reasons people go is because seeing who else is going, not just because, so-and-so is speaking or so-and-so is going to be there selling me a product. It's more, who are the people I'll get to meet with? So if you make that available and transparent or visible early on, and then the more you see people going, because I see it like, for example, it's like, okay, so-and-so is going. Yeah, it was one person. Then I see a second one going. It's like, oh, wow. Third one is like fourth, like, oh my, I have to move. I have to do something. So making that visible, whether it's on the website, making them talk, enable them to talk about the fact that they're going, will help elevate or pressure that person to go commit and register. It is still a trend. We do see it, effectively campaigns, 8 to 10 weeks before the event. That's where you see the spike of the referrals come in. But, you have to start it early on and build up the momentum leading up to it. But it is a trend, unfortunately.
It sure is. Yeah. One last, final, easiest question of all. Where can our listeners find and follow you and Snowball online?
I focus on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. So for me, I open LinkedIn before I open my inbox in the morning. So find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Stephan. Feel free to connect with me, follow me, and happy to connect or answer any questions after. If it triggered or sparked something, this whole conversation, happy to chat.
We can all skill up with Rachel's advice about pausing too long for the sake of perfection.
Just do it. Just do it. Don't sit on it too much. You have to do it. You have to get it out and do it. I waited too long. I kind of tend to overanalyze and doubt, and I wait for perfection and the right timing and this and that. And the times where I said, say yes and figure it out after and just do it, it was the most rewarding thing that I did. So, if you're thinking about it, you're not sure about it, start small, start somewhere, just start. The important thing is to start.
Thanks again to Rachel Stephan for joining us on Event Experience. And thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love to hear it. Connect with us on social and subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Also, don't forget to share the show with your colleagues and friends. You can find transcripts of each episode and key takeaways on bizzabo.com/podcast. On behalf of the team, thank you. We'll gather again soon for a new episode of Event Experience.